Since her husband passed away, the widow has worked hard to project a specific image. To her neighbors, she is the picture of spiritual poise, someone who has finally mastered the art of letting go. But if you look for the twitch of an eye or the tension in her jaw, you see the truth. Behind that calm exterior, her mind is a storm of unvoiced demands. She is constantly tallying the mistakes of others, her internal voice running a non-stop commentary on how the world should be managed. She believes this internal hum is a sign of her own vigilance and care. Yet the people closest to her feel a weight when she enters a room. Without saying a word, they find reasons to be elsewhere. This disconnect leads her to the Ganges, seeking counsel from a saint. She asks him why her family seems to wince at her presence, even though she never speaks a harsh word. The saint gives her a diagnosis. She is focused on her vocabulary, but her family is reacting to her subtext. He tells her to return home for 10 days, but with a condition: she must remain in the thick of family life. Think of two parallel tracks. Literal speech is the smooth, bright line on top. Beneath lies a jagged undercurrent of unsaid emotion. She must watch how this hidden waveform surges up and swallows her spoken intent. Meditation had taught her how to be still in solitude. Now she would have to learn if that stillness could survive the friction of a shared home, and if her spoken words could ever truly align with the reality of her heart. The widow returns to her daughter Kavya's house. Instantly, the old habits resurface. She doesn't see herself as a guest. She sees herself as the necessary supervisor of a household that would surely collapse without her. The friction starts with the bathroom geyser. When Arjun leaves the water heater running, she doesn't just see a switch. She sees waste, laziness, and a personal affront to her values. She makes sure he hears about it. Inside her head, she is simply stating a helpful fact, but she is blind to the way her son-in-law and daughter physically recoil. To them, the fact is wrapped in a layer of condescension that makes the correction feel like an attack. At dinner, the pattern repeats. She mentions the salt levels in the lentils, presenting it as objective dietary advice for her daughter's health. Kavya, who spent an hour over the stove after a 10-hour workday, hears something different. For her, the help is a reminder that she is still being graded by a mother who refuses to be pleased. Within days, the corrections become constant. The way the laundry is folded, the placement of the mail, the volume of the television. These helpful observations act as roadblocks, draining the warmth from the house one sentence at a time. We use our internal monologue as a form of psychological armor. By constantly telling ourselves that our intentions are pure, we never have to take responsibility for the emotional wreckage we leave behind. On the 4th day, Arjun tries to describe a victory at work. The widow immediately hijacks the conversation, turning his story into a lecture about the sacrifices she made to ensure he had that career in the first place. The room goes quiet. Arjun stops mid-sentence. For the widow, this silence feels like an insult, as if her wisdom is being ignored by an ungrateful audience. Kavya finally breaks. She tells her mother, clearly and firmly, that her constant need to manage and correct everyone has made the house feel like a minefield. The widow feels her entire identity threatened. To her, Kavya isn't asking for a boundary. She is erasing her mother's usefulness. She feels her autonomy being stripped away, replaced by the role of an unwanted observer. Her response is a strategic retreat. She declares she will never speak again, turning her silence into a weapon. It is a punishing, visible withdrawal designed to make everyone else feel the weight of her absence. When our traditional roles are challenged, we often retreat into this kind of passive-aggressive exile. We mistakenly believe that withholding our voice is the same thing as being peaceful, when in reality, it's just another way to dominate the room. For 24 hours, the widow sits in her self-imposed exile. Then her 6-year-old granddaughter, Anu, climbs onto the sofa. Anu is too young to understand the adult drama, but she is an expert at reading the energy of a room. Anu looks her in the eye and asks a simple question. "Grandma, why do you get mad whenever anyone else talks?" There is no armor for a child's observation. It lacks the malice to get defensive. Instead, it forces a shift called external focalization. The internal narrator finally goes quiet. In this new clarity, she replays the last few days, looking only at the data of her family's faces, the winces she thought she imagined, the way Arjun shrank away. She sees the repulsion she created. The test comes on day 6. Arjun leaves the geyser on. The widow feels the lecture rising, the urge to manage the waste. But she stops. She asks if anyone is still using the bathroom, and when the answer is no, she simply walks away. That evening, for the first time, the widow sits in a silence that isn't a weapon. She isn't waiting for a mistake to correct. And because she has finally left a genuine gap in the conversation, Kavya leans forward and invites her back in. True emotional connection isn't something we can manage or enforce through correctness. It is what rushes in when we finally stop trying to control the room and leave enough space for someone else to speak.